Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I hope you're well and having a good week. I have had quite a good week, actually. I was at an event on Tuesday, which was lots of fun, and got to meet a lot of people in the alcohol-free space, as well as people that were looking to stop drinking and were curious and ready as well to stop drinking. So that was a good event. And then I also recorded some really fun podcast episodes. So I was a guest on a couple, and then I had people on my podcast as well. And one of the questions was, can you have it all? And it was a really interesting question. Can you have it all? And my answer was yes, if you stop drinking. So I absolutely believe that being alcohol free is a superpower, and it gives you the ability to create the life that you want and to truly live your authentic life. And so on another podcast, we talked about all the benefits that come from being alcohol free, and a lot of them are the obvious ones that people might talk about, like clearer skin and better sleep and losing weight potentially, although that does take a little bit of time, so don't expect that to happen overnight. But yeah, there were just so many positive things that come out of not drinking. And I think so many people think when you don't drink, you're giving things up. And I want to say you're not giving anything up, you're only gaining. And no matter how you come to be alcohol free or sober or alcohol conscious or whatever word it is that you like, the result of it is life is better in some way. And so if you are ready to take a break from alcohol and you have maybe tried dry Januaries, you tried the Lents, you tried to read the quit lit, and you are just finding that you're not able to sustain it, you're not enjoying it. If you're currently taking a break and you're thinking, I'm not enjoying this, or I'm white knuckling it in some way, I'm not really able to be me, then you're probably just not you've just not had the right guidance or the right support, and it's a process and it takes some time. It's not something that happens overnight. So I want you to not worry about that or think you're doing anything wrong or you've failed in some way, because you haven't. So if you are wondering why is it so many people seem to stop drinking and then rave about all these amazing things that happen in their life, but you can't do it or you're not experiencing any of it, even though you've stopped drinking, it's because you're missing the most effective way to make alcohol insignificant and to live a life of abundance. And I believe that's through my Thrive AF method. And so the Thrive AF method takes you on a journey of 3 phases: foundation, firsts, and freedom. And these help you to ditch drinking, sustain and maintain not drinking in a really enjoyable way, and to thrive alcohol free. In the foundation phase, it's all about initially taking a break and then potentially going on to ditch drinking for good. And this is the initial phase in becoming alcohol free. It's all about debunking the myths and the beliefs around alcohol so that you can reflect on your relationship with alcohol and start your alcohol free journey. And then we move on to first. So this is where you start to embody your new alcohol-free identity. And this is the next phase, which helps you look at how to manage all those alcohol-free firsts, how to successfully navigate relationships and to discover new ways of living, where you experience the joy of missing out, which is JOMO and not the fear of missing out. And then finally, in the freedom phase, that's when you're looking at finding lasting joy in all areas of your life. And this final step helps you to go from that initial break to fully embodying your new alcohol-free identity through to self-discovery, where you really look at your life as a whole and determine how to continue on your alcohol-free journey. So Foundation First Freedom are all part of the Thrive AF framework. And so if you are tired of going back and forth when it comes to alcohol, if you know it's holding you back in some way and you want to wake up and live your best life, if any of this resonates with you, then let me tell you, nothing will change unless you book a Thrive alcohol-free discovery call. So during this 30-minute Thrive alcohol-free discovery call, I'll help you uncover what's been holding you back or what's not been working. I'll help you feel supported and empowered to move forward and talk about how there is another way to get to where you want to be with less struggle. And ultimately, I'd hope you come off really knowing what your next steps are and what you need to do to thrive alcohol free. And so if you're ready to do that, book a call. I'll put all the information below and you can start to discover how to thrive, reach your full potential, and live your best life alcohol free. So I can't wait to speak to you. And I really felt I needed to talk about this today because I felt that there are people, and it could be you, that are wanting to stop drinking and have maybe tried all the things and got to the point where they're doing the same thing. And Einstein said, if you do the same thing over and over and over again, that is the definition of insanity. So let's change that today. Let's do something different. Take that step. I know it's a brave step, but book a call and we will discover together how best to move forward and not to be going down the same route which makes you tired of being sick and tired. All right, well, I hope that helps and I'm looking forward to speaking to you. I really know that life is better without alcohol and you can absolutely create the life that you want and that you deserve and be your authentic self and learn how to say no and learn how to not people please and just enjoy life alcohol free. So if you're ready to take a break and to go on this journey, and it is a journey and you have to trust the process, then get in touch and I can't wait to hear from you. And it will be a great conversation that we have. And no doubt you'll walk away feeling empowered and supported. Okay, so I have another great guest today, Samantha Lander, and she has been on the most remarkable journey. And her story is one of resilience and redemption. And we'll go into the conversation, you can hear all about it, but she really did hit what people would probably say is rock bottom, but her human spirit and her capacity for growth and transformation and the way she's handled it and turned everything around has been amazing. And that's because she found her way to sobriety, as she calls it, and embarked on a journey of self-discovery and healing. And so she now has become a functional diagnostic nutritionist specializing in gut health. And she draws from her own experiences and struggles but has found purpose in helping others heal their bodies and their minds. I hope you enjoy this conversation. It might be a bit hard hitting, but I think it's an important conversation, and I know you'll get a lot out of it. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Samantha Lander. So, welcome, Samantha. Thank you so much for being on the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
You too. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So for people that might not know you, I've already given a bit of an intro to you, but why don't you let us know what brings you to being on the podcast? How did you get to the point where you are now sober, alcohol free?
Oh boy. So for me, it's definitely a way of life and a better way of life. As if you're sober, you know that the gifts of sobriety are unreal. It's a constant daily thing where you're super connected to the universe. And I feel as though you're getting more and more gifts in your lap where you get to do service work, you get to help others. So that's part of it is my story. I've noticed the more I share it, the more I get feedback and the more people reach out that know somebody or, anything like that, they're struggling. So they want to find a way to help other people. And that's the ultimate goal. And leaving that kind of legacy, behind once I'm gone is really important to me. I have a pretty crazy story. So it's like I might as well do something with it, right? I went through the ringer. So that's kind of what got me
Wonderful.
be on the podcast, but we can talk more about my story if you want.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love that. I love what you said about being super connected to the universe and all these gifts coming. I do really think that when you stop drinking, all these opportunities just sort of start to happen and all this serendipity, and you're thinking, where has this all come from? And it does feel like it opens the door to lots of good things. And then on the other side, it's so true that when you stop drinking, because of what you're experiencing, you then can't help but share it. You want people to know that this is actually a really great thing, and you want to help
Yeah.
others who are maybe thinking about it or quite not grappling with it or whatever it may be, to just see that there's life on the other side, and actually it's so much better. And it's not about FOMO, it's not about the fear of missing out, it's all about JOMO, the joy of missing out.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
miss out when you're drinking. You're in a fog or using or whatever it may be. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Well, I'd love to hear your story. Why don't you take us back then to where it all
Here we
began,
go.
and we'll strap in.
All right, here we go. All right, so chapter one. So for me, I don't come from a family of alcoholics or drug addicts or anything like that. We looked really good on paper. I started to really dive into that. I've done a lot of the emotional work while I was in my first phase, but in 2024, I decided that the reason I had relapsed after 13 years of sobriety was because I was not tackling the emotional trauma that I didn't even realize was going on because I was always so integrated in so much chaos in my life throughout my using or when I was done because I had so many consequences. So, I mean, the first time I drank, I was in seventh grade. It was not an aha moment like people talk about. I did not love it. I did not feel like it was like, oh, I'm in my own skin. This is great. I don't even actually enjoy drinking. For me, it was a numbing device and a tool to totally shut down any emotions that I had to deal with. Because by the time when I had relapsed after 13 years, I was drinking, not using drugs, and it was purely uh, a self medication to manage the trauma that I had been through. But I was a wild girl, man. I'll just tell you, I felt I had this mentality. I'm gonna live life on the edge, and that like get fucked up. It's
Mm.
kind of where I was at. I am a super extrovert. I'm just like a lot of energy. I love to party. I mean, I don't really have an excuse. It's just that's what I was drawn to. Probably because I have the ism in me. I was always drawn to any movies related to drugs, anything really dysfunctional. That was my jam. So I guess I was born that way. I don't really know. But my first consequence, eighth grade, I got arrested for smoking pot on a school field trip at Six Flags, which is like a big roller coaster park. And then after that, it just continued. I just got in a lot of trouble with my parents. They were drug testing me. I was running away. I wanted to be out. I didn't want to be controlled by anybody. And when they did, it would never go well. I had a lot of ego as a kid, a lot of lack of humility. I didn't care, but a lot of dysfunctional like emotional dysfunction in my family that I did not realize because we look good on paper, right? We had
Mm,
everything, come from a good
mm,
family. So I kind of went through that phase my freshman year of high school. Then I sort of paused and got my life together because I was just getting in so much trouble that it was just beyond me at that point. I just kind of gave up. And at that point, excelled in school. I was the number one varsity rower junior, senior year in a varsity 8 in the US. I went to University of Michigan for Division 1 rowing. I did not stick with that. I decided to start drinking again at that point. And at that point, I mean, I was just a blackout drinker from the get-go. I had tried pretty much all the drugs prior to going to college, so I kind of paused at that point. And athletes drink, they don't really do drugs, but it just was so hard to manage my drinking. I was just blacked out and I never remembered anything and all the stories. And that kind of went on till it didn't. I remember that was the first time I quit drinking was probably junior year of college. At that point, I was just sort of smoking a lot of pot, but I wasn't really drinking because I realized that it just was not working for me. Like I was starting to have a lot of health problems. Um, I mean, I didn't enjoy it. I just didn't have anything else. I couldn't find the right cocktail for me. And I went through a pretty bad breakup and I flew out to LA to visit a friend of mine who had just come out of the closet and he was very integrated in the gay scene and they loved to party. I'm just going to be real. Not all of them. I'm not going to stereotype, but from what I learned, and I've lived that life for a very long time. And I got introduced at that point to GHB, meth, ecstasy, ketamine, and that was exactly my cocktail. And I mean, the first weekend I did meth, I ended up overdosing, and I don't think it was on meth. It's kind of hard to do. And I was in cedar cyanide. Like I had multiple consequences. My higher power was definitely trying to be like, you need to shut it down. But I just kept going. Which is just the addict in me. Is I know now it's just a disease. I just could not stop. And at that point, when I tried meth, I was high on GHB. I'd been doing ecstasy all weekend, and something about that moment was my aha moment. For me, it was everything I needed to function as a normal human being. So, I mean, looking back, I was completely self-medicating for ADHD. I was diagnosed. I never took the medicine. I didn't like the way it made me feel. And so, I mean, it's like it just leveled me out to a point that I felt normal. Like all the racing thoughts, all the monkey mind. I was able to read a book. I was able to focus at school. I graduated with a 3.6 or something from University of Michigan, and so that was like my device. And I didn't black out. It was great. I didn't never liked cocaine. I was too edgy. So that's kind of the cocktail of like the GHB and the meth was my thing. And then I started bringing it back to Michigan. And that's where I would start selling all these drugs. And so this is where like the entrepreneur, like I will, if there's an opportunity to run a business, I will be running a business. Like it does not matter. I sell bone broth out of my garage. If it's there, I'm going to do it. And so there was a small opportunity and that's what I did. And that's where a lot of the I struggled with friendships growing up in high school. It was really hard for me. And I think that's where a lot of the I'm trying to think of how to say it. Like I just thought that I had friends, but they come to you for drugs and I had control over it. So they're never going to not come because they always want the drugs, right? And that continued for a long time. And I think that's part of what I had to work on is find true friendships, which I really have not found in my life till probably like the past couple of years is to really, you know, those I thought were my friends. And then come to find out later when I became a personal trainer, I thought all of my clients were my friends. I was surrounded by people, it filled the extrovert in me. So I was satisfied until I realized I couldn't really call anyone at the end of the day. So anyway, after college, I moved out to LA. I'm trying to fast forward this a lot. So, my job fell through. I ended up buying 2 turntables. I decided to become a DJ. I was still selling drugs out there. Eventually, I decided that I wanted to sell a lot of drugs to not to like a couple people instead of just selling a lot to a lot of drugs to lots of people because it's like, oh, I'm going to get busted, which is like so when you're high, you're just not even rational. None of it's rational. And lo and behold, I ended up having a full SWAT raid at my house by the LA Beverly Hills Police Department, or the LA SWAT team, and confiscated lots of drugs. They arrested me that night. I had a $500,000 bail. I got out the next day, came back to my apartment, and there were two people at my front door, and that was the Missouri postal feds. So at that point, I was looking at a federal case and a state case. My best friend from high school, who had set me up, and she was still in Missouri and I was still out in LA. And so that's kind of where shit hit the fan for me on my using journey. Obviously, at that point I was so scared. I was alone. I had no friends. I was not selling drugs. I felt like everything in my house was bugged. And a friend of mine called me and said, "You need to come out and visit me. I'm in treatment." And I'm like, okay. I didn't even know what that was. I knew about rehab, but I didn't have any concept. And I went out there and I wanted what he had, is all I can think of. It's like something about it made me realize that that's what I need to do. That's probably going to be my next step, but I had to like wrap my head around it. At this point, I was trying to get out of a severely abusive relationship. I was trying to just stay alive. I knew I'd get sick and tired of being sick and tired at some point, and I just didn't want to die. It was literally just, I had all the things. I wasn't at a rock bottom yet. I had money, I had an apartment, I was good. Like, that's like, I had to learn everybody's rock bottom is very different. I thought that I was going to be living out of a car, a heroin addict, like the whole 9 yards. And I just sort of like had a universal come to Jesus, where I looked at my dog and I said, "Should I go to rehab?" And my dog came and put her head on my lap, called my parents, told them I need to go to treatment, told them I was going to go to this bougie ass treatment for only 28 days. So I'm still trying to control the situation, right?
Mm.
And be in control of things. But they called back. They're like, "This doesn't even have 12 steps. There's no way. You sit and get massages all day. It's $75,000. I was like, okay. I was like, well, I need a pool. I have to go to a place with a pool. So I went to treatment, and oh my God, it was like, if I could bottle that shit up and sell it, I'd probably be a billionaire. Within 3 days, my entire life changed. I was laughing again for the first time in years. I was around people like me. It was so good. It was that, like, people talk about when you get sober, you're on like the pink cloud. I mean, it was like magenta. And that lasted for so long. I ended up getting sentenced to 8 months, LA County. I did that time. I got out, I got my probation transferred. I moved home, was getting my life together, and I got indicted with 22 to life for a federal case. Yeah. So that happened. I didn't use through any of it. There was no way that that was going to be a solution for me. There was no way. I didn't even like think about it. And I got through it. You don't really, you got through it. I ended up getting 27 months. I did that time, got out, and became a personal trainer, got into that industry of the health and wellness industry, bought a house within 1 year, was making, over $200,000 a year within 2 years. I mean, just that is the gifts of sobriety right there. It doesn't happen to someone who has, like, I had nothing. And I did that, and I went to one meeting a week. For me, I realized that, like, that doesn't work. I know everybody has their path, everybody has their way of sobriety. I love that there's the sober curious. I love that the younger generation is not drinking as much. I like love it. I support them. I support the whole, they want to do the mocktails, whatever you got to do, man, because that was not me, and that was not the kids I grew up with. And I had 13 years, and I thought I was okay. I stopped going to that one meeting a week. I was in a very challenging marriage. So I had a kid, was not prepared for that. I stopped working, got postpartum. There was some infidelity in my marriage, and my husband had 23 years sober, started using when I was pregnant. I couldn't even, so many things looking back. But I think part of me wanted to use again. I wanted to drink like all the other normal moms, what normal moms, like everyone, the mommy wine culture. It was so glamorous to me. It looked fun. And I think it'd been manifesting. So I never really yelled at my husband. I kind of was like, you go ahead. I was probably banking my drinks at that point,
Mhm.
okay, when I'm done with this baby, here we go. So it's just gonna fix everything. And drinking was never my problem. It was drugs, right? And I know
Mm.
it's all the same. When you get sober, it should be everything. And I never really related to the people in the AA meetings, but I went because there's not a lot of NA in my town. And girl, whew, I mean, all I needed was someone to tell me in order to relax and produce more milk, have a glass of wine. And I ran it by my parents. They didn't really say anything, right? But I mean, I had 13 years, like, right? I'm good. And I was good for a little bit, but then I wasn't. And I mean, I went through a divorce, COVID. I'm an extrovert. I wasn't around people. My son, I mean, it just disaster after disaster. There's no excuse. I have the tools and I knew the tools to stay sober. I did
Mm.
not use them. I was doing what I do with my ego and I was just, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And
Mm.
it got to the point where I could not stop drinking. It was a bottle of gin a day. I tried to make it to 4 o'clock, eventually be 3:30, blacking out. I mean, you name it. I mean, I couldn't
Mm.
stop. I was going to so many meetings, doing everything. I think the physical cravings just got so bad. Now looking back, I was probably detoxing about 4 o'clock every day. I couldn't get
Mm.
a day sober. And this was like next level. This was worse than my drug addiction. I couldn't not do it. I can't even explain it except for that it's got to be a disease, because I was doing all the other things but it wasn't as easy as the first time and that's what I thought it would be. And I think what it took was my last drink. I was in a relationship with a guy and he was sober and he's just like, I can't do this. I lost him. So, and then I lost a best friend. So I lost two people because of my addiction. And that's the only thing I can think of that woke me the fuck up is
Mm.
that losing a human being, two people that I truly care about due to alcohol was like a next level of low for me. I always had my family. They never left me. I never lost my best friends. We still talk. Like they created distance. My good friends in LA, they created distance. The rest were all people I sold drugs to, and they weren't my friends.
Mm. Mm.
And so I'd never had that happen. And all I can think of is that was it. And I haven't even thought really about a drink since or touched a drink. I'm a huge advocate now. I go and chair meetings in the jails. I try to be of service as much as I possibly can. I really just throw it all out there to try to help women heal their bodies because I do like functional medicine now. I have always done it, but I help them heal post drinking, heal their gut, heal their hormones, the cravings, all that stuff. And there's a real space for that. I find like I didn't realize there was, and my business kind of went into that. That's the story. That's the short of it. And here I am.
Wow, and thank you, gosh, thank you so much for sharing. And gosh, it's a hell of a story, but I feel like you should just be really proud of yourself to getting to the point
Oh,
you are
thanks.
today because you've been through a hell of a lot. There's a lot there, and you've come out the other side. And instead of being bitter and twisted about it, you're like, right, I want to help people, and I see the blessing in it, and listen, I'm going, I'm doing, I'm serving, and that's just, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
but
that
thank.
was part of my problem though. So for the first little chapter, it was always like people are like, "You're so strong. You can." And at that point, I was like, I couldn't stop drinking, and I was like, "No, I need someone to help me." I
Mm.
was reaching out. I felt like I was crying for help, but I think you just get labeled sometimes. You got to remember everybody's human,
Yeah.
and we have weak moments, and we're vulnerable. It's hard when people are saying, "Oh, you're so strong. You got this." I'm like, I do
Mm.
not got this
Mm.
at all.
Yeah. But that's the hardest thing, isn't it? Asking for help and really
Oh
being
yeah,
vulnerable and saying, listen, this just isn't working for me, because there's so much guilt and shame and other things that are associated that you put on yourself, and you don't have to put them on yourself, but
yeah.
inevitably as humans we all put them on ourselves, and then we think, if we do this, well, then this is going to happen, and then you build up everything in your head that stops you then from actually doing what you know is the right thing to do, which is just asking for help. Because anytime you ask for help,
Yeah.
you get help. And anytime
Yeah.
anyone asks you for help, you give the help. But it's a challenge, isn't it, to get to that point and to be
Yeah. And
vulnerable.
I think too, as a mother, especially mothers that drink, I found that it's so hard because we have a lot of anxiety just being a
Mm,
mother and trying to keep things together. And a lot of kids are really challenging these days and
mm,
dealing with that and the stress of it and the wear and tear of that. Everybody wants to turn to that drink at the end of the day.
yeah,
Whether you're an alcoholic or not, that one
yeah,
drink
agreed.
actually is gonna manifest more anxiety is what people don't even realize. You don't
Mm,
have to be a problem drinker, but that one drink will cause that cortisol to increase and
yeah,
then cause you to go into fight or flight and cause you to store fat and then
mm,
also cause anxiety and then your neurotransmitters are off because your guts totally trashed from drinking. It's so bad. I didn't
mm,
realize how I mean even one
mm,
drink, like one a
mm,
week. It's just
mm.
so horrible in the body.
Yeah, it's so true because society has basically given us this view that alcohol gives us so much. It helps us so much. It
Oh
helps us
yeah.
relax. It helps us sleep. It helps us be glamorous and sophisticated. It helps us do X, Y, and Z. And you're right, it absolutely does the opposite. It exacerbates anxiety, depression, stress. It is linked to 200 types of illnesses, 7 types of cancers. You don't have to be drinking very much at all to potentially
Mm-mm.
suffer from some of those things. And so,
Yeah.
but we're not given that information as a whole. We're
No.
given the, oh my goodness, fabulous party. Look at these people looking so glamorous. Oh, I'm going on a business flight, so I'm having a glass of champagne. Look at me. That's the messaging that we're given.
Yeah.
You're given that messaging that if it's a sunny day, you all need to sit out in a beer garden and have a drink, and you need to go on the river and sup some champagne.
I was just talking about that because right now we just had our weather change where it's warm
Yeah,
and it's patio weather. And it's funny because now I had 13 years of adjusting to that, but like
yeah,
the first year I remember that weather change of
yeah,
when I was sober, I was like, oh, I hadn't really thought about drinking, but it was
yeah,
kind of like, I need a patio. And because that patio drinking, something about
yeah,
that is just, but it's
yeah.
so great. Like I said, I feel like restaurants, when you say you don't drink,
Mm.
it's different than when I got sober.
Oh my
It's so supportive
goodness.
and like, I mean, it's
Yeah,
trending.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
crazy.
Oh, it absolutely is. I was a judge on the World Alcohol Free Awards for the alcohol free drinks in March. Results have recently come out, which was fabulous. And I tried over 50 products
Oh,
in a
there's so
day.
many.
And there are now just, I mean, we were sent hundreds of products to
I get them. People send them through
judge,
my
and it's
Instagram.
it's it's unbelievable. So I think that's been a real, even when I stopped 3.5 years ago, there was hardly anything. And none of the mainstream people were doing anything at that time either. So
Yeah.
it's been wonderful to see because for a lot of people, that's all it is. It's their inner child and all the memories and subconscious, having all these memories of you. When this happens, this is what you do, your automatic responses. And so, as you say, change of weather, you end up wanting to sit outside and have a barbecue and have a drink, and but to just swap that for an alcohol-free version makes all the difference, because then your inner child
Yeah.
isn't feed there, it's in an adult glass, you're feeling like you're participating, so then you're not feeling like you want to
Yeah.
kick off or you're being deprived. And so it's just been so helpful, I think, that more and more restaurants, bars are actually serving that. There's still a long way to go, I think, and especially in the conference net industry,
Oh
bigger,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
they still don't understand it. But I think that and the fact that the younger generation are now saying that's what they want to do, it feels like there's more opportunity to have that available,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that's
Eh,
brilliant.
yeah. Yeah. All the health conferences I go to now, some of them give me tickets for an influencer or something. So I'm always like, well,
Yeah,
would you? I was like, how about we set up a meet and greet with all the people who are sober in recovery there? Because there's a lot of
yeah,
people in the health space
yeah,
that
yeah,
have been through it because we get addicted to being healthy.
yeah.
And it hasn't quite happened yet, but I just keep asking. And I think that that's a
Mm,
big thing. When I go to these conferences, people want to get It's crazy.
I know.
It's their organic wine.
Oh my
It still does
goodness,
a lot of
organic
the
wine.
same
I'm
thing.
just like,
Yeah.
wow, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's slowly but surely. I feel it'll happen. All you got to do is put it out there. We're in the health space. So
Yeah.
sometimes I wonder, if I took myself out, completely out, is the world really working on personal growth and development as much as I feel like it is? Or am I just surrounded by people who really just are ready to get better? Because even when I run public events down at event spaces
Yeah.
for women, they come
Mm.
in with such positive attitudes. And I don't know if it's because they choose it because it's a health and wellness event. And then maybe my social media feed is always about personal growth and development. I feel like people care. The top podcasts on Apple and stuff are always the ones that are about mental health and personal
Mm.
health and health. And
Mm.
so I don't know, maybe.
I absolutely think people care, and I certainly think it's becoming more of a thing that people are paying attention to. But I do think we're in a bit of a bubble because
Yeah.
I meet people that
Bubble.
are just completely different. And they just don't get it, and they're just nowhere near. You can tell that they still have a lot of work. There's still lots of
Oh, yeah.
egos. And then people that drink, a number of people that say to me when I talk about, when they ask me what I do and I talk about my story or whatever it is I'm doing, I always get, well, I just like wine too much. I just like the taste of wine too much. I don't drink that much. I only drink. And then they start to justify it. And I'm like, well,
Oh,
listen,
there'll be
I
a
don't.
list.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm not asking you to tell me or
Like
to
you care.
justify
Yeah.
yourself. Exactly. But then they seem to say it in a way to justify themselves and to sort of say, and then they'll say, I've met people who have stopped drinking and it's out of choice as well. And they do seem a bit different, a bit better, but I just love wine. I love beers. I love this. And I'm like, okay, you do
I never
you.
drink beer or wine, so
You
I
do
don't
you.
know. I mean, I was ready to, I just was like, take me to another land. It was very isolated. I didn't even go out and drink when I drank.
Oh
So for me, it
gosh,
was a very
yeah.
different experience
Yeah.
than anything. It was like, just get me out of
Mm,
my mind. Just take me
mm.
away from my brain because it was insane.
So, I
It
mean,
was
it's
more
probably
insane.
I
After that,
was
then the next day it was more insane. It just kept packing itself up till I basically was a freaking volcano.
bless you. Yeah, yeah. I'd love to touch on the ADHD if we could,
Yeah.
because a lot of women are getting diagnosed at an older age, and it seems to be something that's quite prevalent. And lots of people talk about and ask me about the links between ADHD and alcohol as well. And based on your experience, what what would you say to someone who has potentially recently been diagnosed with ADHD, is still drinking, but thinking about obviously what does that mean for them?
Well, so I find that a lot of my clients personally that come in are using drinking as a tool to shut off that monkey mind or the
Mm,
inability to process thoughts. So their processing speed is going to be slow or it feels really fast and they get anxiety from that. But the biggest thing is you have to remember that one glass of alcohol is going to cause anxiety
mm,
in your body. So one big part of it is a sleep disturbance. Let's start with that. And so
mm,
what you'll see is a lot of these women, every time they have that one drink, they wake up at between 1 and 3. And
mm,
that is when your liver is starting to try to detoxify the alcohol. So it's
mm,
always going to make that the preferred pathway. It's the preferred thing that they're
mm,
going to detox. It's not going to be the hormones that you need to get out on a daily basis or any excess chemicals in your body or toxins or whatever it is. Our liver goes through a process every night around that time. And so
mm,
you wake up because it's basically saying, what the fuck have you done to me? So I'm going to
mm,
work on this alcohol and all that other shit that I need to be doing to keep you from having
mm,
PMS and hot flashes and night sweats
mm,
and
mm,
weight gain. So I'm going to put that aside. And what I'm
mm,
going to do is I'm going to work on this alcohol. So you wake up, you don't properly get all the hormones out, you start to become estrogen dominant or all these other hormone imbalances, and you all of a sudden starting getting more
mm,
hormone symptoms. But nobody looks at the whole body where they relate at all. So you're also now struggling with those kind of things. So you've got the ADHD, the hormone imbalances, the anxiety going.
mm,
And so you start self medicating with more alcohol. And so you're just putting fuel on the fire. And what I tell people is just stop drinking, obviously, for a month. Even clients that don't have an issue but are struggling with a lot of these symptoms and the brain fog, that the neurotransmitters, their dopamine, the brain fog with most women that I work with, probably our age, is probably struggling with it unless they've done a lot of work. That alone is going to exacerbate your ADHD. And so I always say clean out the sugar, get rid of all the inflammatory foods as much as you possibly can. I do a lot of food sensitivity testing where I know exactly what to take out. So we can work on the craving, all the things. So I'm very whole body. So it's all the things. Because I kind of just went on a rant. But the biggest thing for the ADHD is I remove all that stuff that's going to cause any swelling, any issues with the brain. And then I also use saffron. So very, very high doses of saffron, like a supplement, saffron supplement. Literally, I got off my ADHD medicine. I have gotten probably over 30 of my clients off ADHD medicine by just having them start taking high doses of saffron on a daily basis.
So what does that do?
It's almost like taking Adderall or Ritalin
Oh,
or
really?
yeah.
Wow.
I didn't believe it. And
Yeah.
it is, yeah. And then there are, I just found a supplement, but I haven't tried, I don't remember the name of it, but I just found a supplement that actually helps you with, if you have to take it, it helps you with that coming down off it at night, and it helps with your adrenals and has ashwagandha and all this stuff. I have not tried it yet. I need to order it, but I'm very curious to see how that would impact. It's an aid to support your system if you do have to take the medication. But I always say try to find a way. If you just look on social media, they have so many different tools, I feel, for people with ADHD. They have little boards where you can like have all your things you need to do for the day, and then you just click them, lists that are tasks. It just kind of depends on where your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think if you can find a way to focus on your strengths, you can learn. If you've managed and just got diagnosed as an adult, sometimes it's what you need. But I think definitely looking at your hormones, supporting your adrenals, getting your neurotransmitters balanced out, cleaning up the gut, getting out inflammatory foods. These are kind of all the things that I do with clients on a regular basis to try to get them really optimize their health in the most holistic way without medication. And then if you need to supplement, obviously there's a time and place.
Yeah,
That
that's
was a long
amazing.
answer.
No, it was a really thorough answer. It was a great answer. Yeah, medication's a really interesting thing as well, because I know a lot of people who, again, have stopped drinking but were on antidepressants beforehand while they were on the menopause. And so they'd just been put on antidepressants again. No one had asked them how much they were drinking, whether they were drinking. And they stopped
Dude.
drinking. And before they knew it, about 6 months later, they were able to come off them. But it feels like medication's just thrown at people, isn't it? And
Oh,
when you
it's a
have
band-aid for everything.
and when you have other alternatives, again, I wonder if people actually know that, whether it's just an automatic,
I mean,
I'm just
I
going
didn't
to
know
go
about
for
this.
medication. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they trust people. Well, my doctor said so. They're a doctor.
Mm, mm,
But they're only trained in what they do. Western medicine is great when you need it, but
mm,
they don't look at the whole body. They don't look at how it all plays a role. When I
mm,
was drinking, I was even doing this, but I was having, and at that point I had not done a lot of research on alcohol. I did not even
mm,
realize it, but I was waking up with, oh my God, hot flashes, night sweats,
mm,
panic attacks. And
mm,
I was to the point where I was like, I am so fucked up. And I'm an addict. I knew it was the alcohol, but I don't think that everybody else would know. I can see why they would think it's just anxiety. And so
mm.
but I would drink to try to get it to go away because it was
Yeah.
so bad. I mean, and I even was like, I need medication. I was to the point
Mm,
where I was about to just start taking anything someone gave me. I even went to a
mm,
psychiatrist. He's like, let's just get you to not drink. And he was alcohol. And I was like, no, I need Wellbutrin. I need Prozac. I was like, I can't because I'm a mom and I got to take care of my
mm,
kid. And the second I stopped drinking, I have not had anxiety. I mean, a little bit, but
mm.
hot flashes,
Yeah.
night sweat, none of it. None
Mm,
of it.
yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. There's just not, people just don't seem to know the link. So no, thank you for sharing. And we said that when you sort of went back to, you'd obviously had the 13 years of being completely sober, and you then started again, but it was losing your partner and your best friend that then switched you over. So how long were you drinking for that period of time? And what do you think you did differently? Because you did just say, I just stopped. So whereas obviously previously you'd gone for treatment and everything else, how did you just stop?
Well, I feel like with treatment, I did just stop. I was just done,
Mm,
but I knew I had to do more. I was ready to do
yeah,
anything, but I got there and I have not done any of those drugs or touched any of it since
yeah.
2006. Never. I was
Mm,
done. With the alcohol, so my son was born in 2017 is when I started drinking. At one
mm,
point when our marriage was really bad, I said it's either we get sober or we're done. And at that point I got sober for a while and then COVID hit and that was just really hard. I don't know, it was a nightmare and I think I did all right
mm,
for a little bit. Zoom meetings were not for me. And then I started drinking, but it wasn't really out of control yet.
mm,
I think it was when my son has oppositional defiant disorder, and that started to
mm,
get really bad when he was about 3.5. And that was right
mm,
when he was going back to
mm,
daycare. So once life started going again, I I I think that's where it was more of the numbing and the trauma and it just everything got really hard. And that's when it just picked up again.
mm,
And I don't
mm,
really know. I can't really even explain like it just got very isolating. COVID, I would go out and have a drink on a date or something, but
mm,
it just got where I was just extremely isolated. My son was violently attacking me and telling me he's 3.5, telling me he
mm,
wants to kill me out of nowhere.
mm,
Just, it's insane. ODD is insane. If you look it up, it's a very challenging. And I
mm,
didn't know what it was. I just didn't
mm,
know. And so I'm a
mm,
disciplinarian, but it wears on you. I get it
mm,
with the moms. By the end of the day, I just couldn't cope with that. And I hadn't processed like my marriage or
mm.
my childhood trauma, or there's a lot that I didn't really deal with because I was labeled as like, you're good, you're strong, you got this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I did for a while, but it all
Mm,
comes up eventually.
mm,
So yeah, I don't know. I couldn't even explain it. It just got bad. And I just couldn't,
mm,
I don't know. I guess that was just my day that I stopped. I don't know. All I can think of, it was like kind of losing them and just letting my ego go. And I just remember I went to this girl's house who I did not even know, who was in the program that my sponsor sent me to her house. And I went into this woman's house and I cried for like 4 hours and was like,
mm.
was done.
So how long ago was that?
It was December 23rd, not this December, but the other. So I have like a year and
Mm,
almost 6 months, maybe.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so not a lot,
Mm,
but I'm
mm,
still a
yeah,
baby.
it's amazing.
I
No,
went
it's
to a meeting
amazing.
yesterday and there was a kid in there coming off heroin. He was detoxing. There's like a sober house here. And it's just
Mm,
watching that. It's just such a hard thing.
mm,
It was
mm,
so sad,
yeah,
but that's why we
yeah,
share our stories.
absolutely, absolutely. And and obviously you've touched a lot on all the work that you're doing in terms of nutrition and helping from a sugar we touched on briefly, and sugar's a big thing, getting off sugar, because obviously that's the next addiction really. Once people stop drinking, then you get these sugar cravings. So what advice do you give for that?
When people quit drinking, the first thing I do is I work on regulating their blood sugar.
Mhm,
So the biggest thing that comes with the cravings is either an underlying gut infection, which they probably have some sort of bacteria overgrowth or something that
mm,
is feeding off sugar, which can
mm,
exacerbate the cravings. But a big part of it is when you drink, your blood sugar is so messed up.
mm,
So it's just regulating that and getting them off all the fad diet because everyone's trying like, the keto or the intermittent
mm,
fasting. And so the first thing I do is a food sensitivity test with them and I get all the inflammatory foods out. And the reason I do that is because what happens when you eat those inflammatory foods is you get that same feeling of using drugs or alcohol, like that dopamine, that serotonin kicks in
mm,
because it's causing an inflammation in the body. And people don't realize food is causing that same response. And
mm,
if you have a really leaky gut, you're going to be way more reactive to the foods you're sensitive to.
yeah,
And so we pull all those out and then we work on just really getting them to eat 3, 4 meals a day with high
mm,
protein, high fat,
yeah,
lots of healthy fat. Never eat a carb alone. Always throw a
mm,
lot of good healthy fat in there. Don't be afraid of it. We need it. It's building blocks for our hormones and that
mm,
can typically help.
mm. And so examples of the inflammatory foods for people that might not know.
Oh, it's totally random.
Mm,
So it tests for 175 different foods. And what I would say
mm,
is we create our own food intolerances to foods that we eat all the time.
mm,
So it's probably whatever you eat all the time. And then the biggest ones I see a lot of is corn, cow's milk, gluten, sugar, soy, and eggs, probably. I see a lot of those
mm,
come up, but it's totally random, or it's whatever you're eating a lot of. So creature of habit, oatmeal and egg every day, chicken
mm,
and salad every day for lunch. Those are the things.
mm.
If someone's doing that, those might come up. But
Oh,
it's not forever. And if you work on getting rid of gut infections and healing the gut, eventually you can reintegrate all those foods. And if you eat something you're reactive to, you're not so sensitive to it and you can
mm,
manage it. You're not doubled up with cramping and bloating and diarrhea and all that stuff. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel always,
mm,
but
mm.
the alcohol, I mean, you think of like rubbing alcohol on your hands, right? What are we using it for? To kill bacteria, right?
I know.
So
I
what are we
know.
doing to our gut? We're drinking alcohol, and so we're killing all the bacteria in our gut
Mhm.
that we need.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it always reminds me of that the picture I saw in the early days when I stopped drinking, which is of a woman drinking out of a petrol can, and obviously she wasn't drinking the petrol, but that's the point, isn't it? You know, alcohol's ethanol, which is what we fill our cars
Yeah.
up with, and what we clean our homes with, and what we sanitize, hand sanitize, and everything
But we
else, and
just do
it's
not
just
care. No.
madness, really, when you look at it like that. So yeah, it's quite scary. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been
Yeah.
enlightening. Was there anything else that you'd like to share?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you. There's probably a lot, but no, I think we did great. I think we covered a lot.
Perfect. Okay. Well, as always, when I come to the end of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what thriving alcohol-free means to you, Samantha.
Oh, okay. So thriving. I know I am thriving when I am doing service work. I think that's really important. And I'm
Mm,
working on my legacy. So it's really important to me. I have this story that can relate to a lot of like the mommies and the alcohol and all that. But then I have my other
mm,
story. And I think of it as being alcohol free gives me an opportunity to make it right for partially my son. So if
mm,
I die, I think about, which is kind of morbid, but I think about my
mm,
funeral and what
mm,
my son will learn about from people and my past. So
mm,
for them to say, oh, well, she got out of prison and then she went back selling drugs. I mean, that could be my path, right?
mm,
So for me, it's what is my kid gonna inherit? What kind of
mm,
characteristics? What's he gonna learn about me? And what will
mm,
be stuck in his mind if something were to ever happen? And I
mm,
don't want him to be like, yeah, my mom was a fucking drunk. So I think that keeps me thriving and helping others. I love my
mm,
job. So lucky. I love helping women feel their best after they've been told they're fine and they know they're
mm,
not and they're just sick of
mm.
being sick.
Yeah,
So
amazing. Well, thank you so much. So how can people get in touch with you?
oh, I think the best way is probably Instagram. My handle is CFIT Living, but it's SEEFIT Living. And then Samantha Lander or CFIT Living on Facebook. I have my website's kind of janky. I'm not even gonna say it. And I do offer a free clarity call. So if anyone's curious to like find out more
Yeah,
or just talk with me about their health, it's free and there's booking links all over all that. There's a lot of good tips on my Instagram. So
great. Well, thank you for being such an open and honest and wonderful guest, Samantha. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
wow,
Take
thanks.
care. Well, thank you so much, Samantha, for being so honest and for, yeah, just sharing such an amazing story, but also what you've done since and how you've helped people. And I think it's incredible. And I also really valued what you talked about when it comes to ADHD and drinking. And there seem to be a lot more women, especially who are being late diagnosed with ADHD. So I hope that if that's you or if that resonated, that's helpful for you as well. I loved what she said about everybody's rock bottom is different. And I talk about not having to wait until you hit rock bottom, but rock bottom is so subjective, and you might feel like you've hit a rock bottom, even though you haven't ended up with a DUI or you haven't ended up in prison or needing medical intervention, your rock bottom could be different. But really, it's why wait until you hit that rock bottom? You have a choice at the moment before you hit rock bottom. And I want to remind you that alcohol is an addictive substance, and there's nothing wrong with you. You are absolutely whole. But ultimately, the more you drink, the more addicted you will become to it, because it is an addictive substance, which effectively means that as the years go on, you are going to want to drink more. You are going to need to drink more to get the same buzz that you had before. You are going to find yourself on that slippery slope. So the question isn't, am I an alcoholic? Am I drinking too much? Is there something wrong with me? Can I not handle my drink when everyone else can? They're not the questions to be asking. The question to ask is, will my life be better in some way, even if it's a tiny way, without alcohol, be that spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or physically? And if the answer is yes, and you know deep down it's yes, then take a break, stop drinking. And it sounds ridiculously easy. It sounds really straightforward, and I know it isn't, and I'm not saying it is. But if you think life can be better in some way without alcohol, then take a break and go from there. And it doesn't mean you have to say forever. You don't have to say, I'm never drinking again. You don't have to say, this is it, my life's ended. It isn't. You are absolutely going to find you are only gaining, and you are certainly not missing out. And you will find so many positive things. So don't wait until you hit rock bottom, whatever that rock bottom could be. Choose to do something about it now. And as I mentioned at the start of this episode, if you would like support, or if you'd just like to talk to someone, feel free to book a Thrive Alcohol Free discovery call with me, because even if it's just finally saying, I want to do something about it, a call and talking to someone else about it and where you are on your alcohol-free journey, or where you are when it comes to alcohol, is helpful. And so I really want you to think about where you are, what you want in life, and what you would really like. If you realize alcohol's not serving you, and one of the things you want to do is to maybe not let it control you as much, or not feel like you have to drink, then book a Thrive Alcohol Free discovery call with me, and I can't wait to speak to you. Okay, well, it's always wonderful to have you here listening, and I am grateful for you. And I hope you have the most amazing week, and that something landed today and it will help you maybe make a different choice. So, yeah, so have a good one, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and group coaching. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.